anybody wants me to explain this, I'm not the greatest trainer in the world when it comes to like visualize, doing this. I just kind of I do it, and that's how I do it. So, but I will try to explain it. So the first thing you got to know is about the two different types of stories that are going to come through at night for us. One are just stories from papers that they put on our incoming board, and you should all have access to the incoming board. And if you don't, I'll put a little, I'll put in the message there, I'll give you a link there. So stories come in from other papers that might be of interest or that we've requested specifically, which will be the case tonight with the Wilmer story. Other times, stories will come directly through into Slack, and those are generally from our forum news service reporters, Dana, Alex, and there's a room in Slack called Copy That FNS. And again, you should all have access to that. Again, I'll put a little link here to this room. Now, I'm going to call up. I'm going to try to share my screen in a minute and show you some things. Now, when Dana or Alex come in, they have 99% of the time already sectioned in Brightspot, the type of news it is, whether it's Minnesota story or a government story. They also have given access to all the papers that usually get their stuff. They do on templates. So 99% of the time, all of that stuff is going to be done for you. You basically need to read it, output it, and then link it. So with the stuff coming through, Copy That FNS, it's less troublesome than stories that are coming in just to the board. Yep, go ahead.
Can you remind us how to, like, when you're posting a story and you want it to go to all Minnesota or all North Dakota or whatever?
Yep.
Can you remind us how to change the audience?
Yes, I will do that.
Thanks.
So, like with FNFs, they're going to 99% of the time be everything's ready. And with the print options, you might have to tweak the headline or do something. So those stories come in, and Dana and Alex work out of, and I'm sure they work out of the Duluth News Tribune is their home destination on Brightspot. So when those stories come up, you'll click on them. Let's say you're in the forum. Let's say your home spot is the forum, or your home spot is Rochester, or your home spot is Grand Forks. When you click on that story, it's going to take you right to the Grand Forks version of that story. And here I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully, if I do it right. So you all should see an inside of a in-forum article on Brightspot. And because Dana or Alex have already put in all the papers that they need to go over here, this is where we're at, access. This one's owner of Brainerd Dispatch. But since it's sectioned already to the forum, when I called the story up, it just kept me in the forum. And you know where you're at in Brightspot? It's right up here in the right-hand corner next to your image. That's where you're at. That's your ownership. So when Dana or Alex send their story in, their home is Duluth, they've already accessed Fargo to it. Here's the trick. You have to change what your ownership is, or what your home base is, to whatever the owner is. Where do you find the owner? It's right here on the right-hand side under sites, and then it says owner, Brainerd Dispatch. So I'm using this one as an example, obviously. So what I want to do here is I want to go up to this little, right next to my name where it says the home site. I want to click on it, and it's going to give me a drop down, hopefully. There it is. And it lists all the properties that we have. And then so I'm going to click on Brainerd Dispatch, and then boom, I'm at the proper newspaper or BSP home site. The reason we do that, and we stress doing that, and you'll get an email from me in a second, is if I go in and make any changes to this story and I'm in the wrong ownership, what it can do, and it doesn't do it all the time, but it does it enough to annoy people, and I hit publish, Brightspot's going to recognize the last home page that was on, and it's going to kill the Brainerd Dispatch URL up here, this one here, and it's going to take readers to another site. So if somebody clicked on that story on Duluth, they would be directed to the Fargo Forum site. And we don't want that. We want readers to stay on the home website that they're at. So you have to change the ownership when you come in to a story. And once there, again, this is for FNS copy for Alex and Dana. Pretty much you're just reading the story, and then you're going to your print options, and everything looks good. You've read the story, everything looks great, and you just hit publish. It's going to kick it out to, again, in this case, the Brainerd Dispatch, but in the case of Dana or Alex, it's going to kick it out to Duluth production folder. And from there, it's just like you would do with any one of your pub stories. You go and you find it in that publication folder, and you link it right to the pod digest. So that's how we do that. I mean, I know I go quick, but that's how stories coming in from FNS. They'll come into the copy that FNS room. You'll click on it. Just make sure that you're in the right home site or home Brightspot when you're editing their copy. And again, you find that out from the right-hand side under who is the owner. So that's the copy that, again, comes in from FNS. Other stories that we get in that come into the incoming board. I'm going to go back up here and change this to Inform so I can show you again. Give me a sec. So in this case, this was a story that Brainerd had sent in on the incoming board on, I think it was Sunday. And what we did in this case is the copy editor who was working went into the incoming board, called up the story. Their home site was already in Forum, and or they were called it up, and it took them to the Brainerd site. Sorry, I screwed up. Boom, 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 boom. Give me a sec. Took them to the Brainerd site. And so what the copy editor did was they just accessed, and under here, here's where you can add other people to a story. And so under here, under owner, the next tab down is access. So who gets this story on their website, basically? Well, you click on, there's three things: some others, none, and all others. You never want to click on all others. All others includes Ag Week, The Rink Live, the FNS, which really doesn't even have a website. So you should do some others. And then when you click on that, it'll give you another drop down underneath it. And you click on the arrow. And then this one doesn't have a site category for some reason. Superior Telegram. They do have a site, but it's Wisconsin. So you can just click on all Minnesota news or click off of it. Thing is that it's already on Brainerd. So you have to go down and you have to, so Brainerd shouldn't show up in your all Minnesota news. So you click on it, it says all Minnesota sites. And generally, with things that we're going to share with all Minnesota sites, we're going to share with the Inforum and the Grand Forks Herald because their readership extends into Minnesota. And this instance, we clicked on Mitchell. I probably wouldn't do a rollover in Morrison County with South Dakota, so I'm going to take that off. So then, boom. So then I'm ready, or am I? Because here's the kicker. You go over here on your left-hand side, and I've done this in other training where I kind of, when you're looking at it on my screen, I divide it up into three kind of sections. It's on the left side is how I'm getting it ready, what the headlines are, where the copy is. In the middle section here is what it's going to look like on the web. And over here on the right is who does it go to? That's how I kind of think my brain thinks of these three kind of sections. So over here on our main, I'm going to look down, and this is what you've got to be careful of. Scroll down. It has a primary section of local here. So, and that's great for Brainerd. Brainerd is right by Morrison County. It's right there. It's local for Brainerd. It is not local for Duluth or Rochester. So in this instance, I would have not accessed everybody else. I would have made a copy of this story and changed the primary section to Minnesota over here. Again, this can still work. You can do this, but you have to remember that over here on the primary section, that's what's going to see on the website. People are going to look at that and go, oh, local news. It's going to fall under local news, or when somebody clicks on a local news tab, it's going to fall there. And it shouldn't for papers other than Brainerd. So then the question is, well, Matt, why don't you change Brainerd's to just Minnesota? I could do that. But again, I'm telling Brainerd readers that this isn't local. It's a statewide, it's Minnesota. So in this instance, I'm going to make a copy of the story. I'm going to go back and I'm going to say, nobody else gets it. Oops, it's in the form. So over here, I'm going to make a copy of the story. I have to do something real quick. 1 second. I made so many changes to it, I have to hit publish here for a second. Boom, boom, boom. Sorry, it's catching up. So in this instance, I would make a copy of the story. But now I'm realizing here as I'm looking at this, it's a Brainerd Dispatch story and they have a workflow issue. So I can't do that with this story right now. Sorry about that. I will use a different tab story that I have ready to show you. So give me 1 second while I end this window. I'm going to go back and present. Sorry. Okay. Dang it. This one has it too. Sorry. I might have to do this in another one. Okay, here's another one that came over again on Sunday. And this came over and it was selected to everybody's sites. We added everybody from the West Central Tribune. Not everybody's. We did basically the dailies in Minnesota. But again, over here under Maine, scroll. Again, sectioned as local, and it should be sectioned as Minnesota. So in this instance, I change it to Minnesota, hit publish. It's now going to show up on the West Central Tribune site as Minnesota, under the tag, or under the heading Minnesota News. I'm going to live with it right now. So you can do it that way. You can just change the designation. But I think it's because these stories are published and like 3 days old. I might be not being able to make a copy of them. So I'm going to call up a different story. Sorry, this is so convoluted. I should have checked this before I did the training. I just assumed it would let me make a copy. Okay, but we'll try it. Here we go. So I'm going to change that back to local. As Wilmer had it. I want to do local now. There it is. Okay. So let's say it's all local. It just has the West Central Tribune now. It's not shared with anybody else. I wonder if I can do that. Yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because I can. I'm just going to take everybody else out of here. Okay. So again, we call up this story and we want to change it. We want to make a copy of it. First thing we have to do is my home site is Brainerd in this instance. So I need to change the West Central Tribune. Oh. Okay, so I've changed it to West Central Tribune. It's listed under local. And I am like, well, I don't want it to be local. It's a statewide story. Okay, so how do you do that? Up next to green publish button, you have 3 arrows. Click on that. It says make a copy of this article. Okay, so you click on that. Yes. So you'll get this disappearing and reappearing screen. Did I make a copy of it? Yes. Yes, you actually did. And you can tell because you have this little save draft here. That's how you know you've made a copy. But since I want to make this a statewide story and not local for Wilmer, I need to change the owner. So I'm going to change the ownership. I'm going to go down here and I work out of the Inforum. So I'm going to click on Inforum. I'm going to take out the access. Oops. Take out the access to everybody else except the Inforum. I'll get back to that. And then the change I'm going to make is I'm going to change this to I did, but and so it's going to say, okay, these are the changes you want to make. Okay, and then I hit save. It's doing the blue circle here. It'll take a second. Then you're going to get this screen. It says, hey, this is a Wilmer story. You changed the ownership of the form. Is that okay? Yes. So I'm going to click on it. And now my ownership has changed from the form. So I'm no longer associated with that Wilmer story. So now I can change headlines to, say I want to make this for rural needs top issue for Minnesota DFL. Let's just say I'm changing that. And so I change that. headline. I've changed the sectioning to Minnesota, and instead of Wilmer now, I'm going to take out Wilmer here, and I'm going to say, add a tag of an election, 2022, and I'm ready, and I'm going to access some others. What others are you going to access? Well, I'm going to take the dailies in Minnesota. So I click on all of Minnesota, but I'm going to just go with the dailies. So I take out every day, take out all the other ones that aren't dailies. And I'm going to make sure I take out the West Central Tribune because they already have this story on their website. I'll click on that. Down, banner. And there's my Minnesota dailies. Oh, wait, yeah, it's Minnesota, so I need to click on the Herald too because they have readers in Minnesota. So now I'm ready to put that out there. Here's the key I do. This is from my own state of mind. When I kick out this, when I publish this now, it's going to go to the Inforum production folder, not the West Central Tribune production folder. So theoretically, I don't have to change the slug line, but I do anyway. And I just usually put like FNS behind it.
It actually really helps if you do that. So please keep doing that.
Yeah. And so that way I know from my own personal that I'm using the version that is for everybody, else except for the host paper or the whole, where the story originated from. And I do that. And when I kick it out to the forum, or when I hit publish, it'll click out to the forum. It's going to kick out 2 versions of it. And I brought this up with Brightspot people, and I don't know why it does it. It's going to kick out a version without the FNS, and it's going to kick out a version with the FNS. I'm quirking Brightspot that it just wants to print, or, wants to kick out a version of the original. So you'll see this when you do this. It'll kick out 2 versions. And so I'm going to do that. I'm going to hit publish, and it's going to kick this out. I'm actually not going to do it because this has already been published a couple times. So that's the key there, is changing that to FNS. And the way you know that you're in a version or a copy of it is how your ownership is. You're going to, again, be in the West Central Tribune. You're going to hit make a copy, and it's going to, boom, make a copy. But that copy is still in West Central Tribune until you change the owner here. Once you change the owner, you hit save. It's then going to direct you to where, where you saved it to. And that's when you're in the forum, Inforum or Rochester or whatever your home domain is. And there you can work on it, change. The main thing we make copies for, I would say 99% of the time, I have to make a copy of something, is that the primary section is off. And that's over here. 99% of the time, local paper says it's local. We want to make it a statewide story. So again, you do a Grand Forks Herald story, and it's got local. Well, it's not local to Fargo. It's not local to Dickinson. So I'm going to make a copy of that and change it to North Dakota. And I'm going to put FNS behind the slug, and I'm going to kick that out to wherever I want. I'm going to change the ownership to the Inforum or whatever. And I'm going to kick it out that way. And in that instance, it'll go to the forum production folder. That's the version you link to the pod digest. Now, I will say this about North Dakota, and Ben knows this a little bit. They're very good because they basically got, 3 other properties. Fargo, if it knows it's got a statewide story, will probably, in their version, put North Dakota over here and have it all ready to go. Same with Grand Forks. Dickinson and Jamestown are a little more, they'll have a local angle to it, but if you know it's a statewide interest, you can make a copy of those. I think I did one this past weekend with the Dickinson police chaplain who retired. They had it sectioned local. I made a copy, called it North Dakota. Boom, there you go. So that's the main reason we're going to make copies of stories. And again, when you're dealing with FNS copy from Alex, Dana, that come in through the copy that FNS room, you're not going to have to do this. This is mainly for stories that come into the incoming board that we've requested, like, hey, Duluth, we want that story about, the triple murder. Well, Duluth's going to slug it local because it's local to Duluth. I'm going to make a copy of that and call it a Minnesota story. And the other main thing you want to do is I make copies is with the headlines a lot of times, is that they'll have a headline to say, what was it yesterday? Proctor High School football player pleads guilty to assault. That's Duluth's headline. Well, I don't want to change that on Duluth site to Minnesota High School football. Duluth site, it should say Proctor. So I made a copy of that story and changed the headline. Changed it from a local story to a Minnesota story. That's the main reason why we're going to change stuff on sharing the copy. Now, 99% of the stuff I do, I do this stuff. Jack knows how to do it. Carrie, some of the night people or the weekend people can do it, but it's good for a refresher for everybody. I will send out a note after this or an email that you can look through that's got kind of, screenshots of these little arrows and things like that. And it's, again, I'm not the best trainer in the world, and I should have picked better stories. So that's how we change that stuff. It can be, this happened last night. Park Rapids went into a Brainerd story. We've told editors not to do this. But Park Rapids went into a Brainerd story last night. The editor in Park Rapids went into the Brainerd story, made a copy, but didn't change the ownership, and added Park Rapids to their story, to their access, hit publish. So when people were going to Brainerd's story last night on Brainerd's site and clicking on the story, they were going to the Park Rapids site. So I got called in to say what's going on here. And it was basically because Park Rapids editor did not change the ownership to Park Rapids. They didn't make a copy, or they made a copy, but didn't change the ownership. And that can happen. And believe you me, when we first started Brightspot, I screwed this up so many times. I had daily, emails from, Rick in Duluth going, why is our story taking it to the Herald site? Or why is our, the Herald people emailing, why is our story going to Park Rapids? So, if you screw up, it's not the end of the world. It can be fixed. You just need to go in and change the ownership and tuck the URL, and I'll show you how to do that at another time. So I'll stop presenting now. And again, I can show everybody. If it's easier just on a one-on-one, we can do that too. The main thing is when you're copying the story, change the ownership to your home paper and where you want to go. The other thing you'll notice in Brightspot is, here we go. I'm going to share my screen again. So again, this is just my basic, when I log in to Brightspot, this is what shows up. My home section is the Inform. You'll get a story in the incoming board that has already been sectioned to the form. Let's say Brainerd has a murder story and they know the forum's going to want it. So they've already sectioned the story to form. The problem with that is I'm just going to call up a story here. Problem with that is when you call it up, it's going to keep us on the Inform site, not the Brainerd site, because Brainerd has already been added, or, you know, the forum has already been added to the Brainerd story. So it's just going to say, oh yeah, this is the forum's version of the Brainerd story. If you want to make a copy of that or change it, got to make sure that you're in the Brainerd dispatch, you know. So it says, yeah, click on it on Inform. You know, again, this one's sending me back to the Inform because I don't have Brainerd sections here. So that's the key, is if your home base is Fargo and you call up a story, somebody may have already accessed Fargo to that story, but they're working out of, you know, again, Duluth or Brainerd or Grand Forks or whatever. Just make sure that if you call up a Grand Forks Herald story, first thing you do is you go up here and change your ownership to Grand Forks, or change your home base to Grand Forks. And from there, go about, make your changes, make a copy, add another access to it. You know, that's the one thing I can just stress enough, is when you're in the pod incoming board here, we can go through the pod incoming board. You know, they're going to link their story to the pod incoming board. The BSP link is going to be from Wilmer. It's going to be from Rochester. So when you call up that story, half the time, you know, for stories that are very hyper local, a lot of the times when I call up that story, my home base of the Inform, it's going to say, hey, you can't edit this story. This is from the West Central Tribune. Do you want to switch to the West Central Tribune? And I hit yes. And then I'm in the West Central Tribune and everything's fine. But there are occasions where Rochester may have already, you know, put Fargo in there because they know it's a statewide story. So again, my one caveat is just make sure you're in the right ownership or the right paper for that story. And what can happen is, during the day, for those of us who work with a lot of Brightspot copy, and I'm sure you guys see this too, because you're working from multiple pubs, is I'm working on Inform all day, and then I get a Grand Forks story, and the last story I did was Grand Forks. And so when I hit my dashboard, even though Fargo is my home base, I hit my dashboard, it's going to take me to the home base of my last story I worked on. And all of a sudden up here, that's Grand Forks. And so then I get that Jamestown story that's already sectioned to Grand Forks, but now I want to change the headline to this, that, or the other thing. And I change it, but I didn't change this to Jamestown. That's when you can kind of create problems. Again, I've screwed that up several times. And I mean, I've talked to Brightspot, talked to Wagner, they know about it. They said, yeah, we know when you're jumping from different sites, there's a tendency to get, you know, it's not that you're in the wrong site, because you might have access to that story, but it can screw up the URLs for the home paper if you make changes and hit publish on that site without changing the ownership. So it's just a word to the wise. And then you get the red thing of death. So yeah, sorry, that's, you know, kind of all over the place there with differences. But again, I'll send along some material that you can read through, or you can try it. If you want to work on a story together, I did that with Rob Beer. If you know, you want to take a stab at doing a story in the incoming board, we both can call it up and we can do it together. And that's how, you know, Rob Beer helped me that way. So we can do it that way. Okay.
A couple of quick things here then.
Yeah.
Next week and the week after that, Matt will be gone. Functionally, he'll be dead to us. So if you have any issues, talk to me. We're ignoring him.
Don't joke about that.
Yes, I will be in Chicago, and Joe Fleming will be
Yes.
with me.
So we're going to have him have an actual vacation. So if you have issues, please come talk to me. Memorial Day is coming up soon. The calendar's updated. We have a couple of deadlines that are changing for that. The Farmers Forum will be due by 5 p.m. the Friday before. And the Rochester Tuesday print edition will have to be completely done on Sunday night. And Wilmer and Mitchell will not be having e-editions.
For Sunday for Monday.
Yep, Sunday for Monday. So on Memorial Day itself, they won't. So that works out because then the designer time that we would have spent on those, we can spend on the Rochester print edition. So, and then just one other quick note, and that is that on some days, it looks like nobody is grabbing the advanced content for several of our properties, which puts designers behind. So please ensure that you're always, going as far ahead as you're able to with advanced content, getting things linked up, even if, half the stuff for the opinion page is ready and not the other half. If you can get that ready for designers, that's great. The advanced stuff should be ready about 2 days in advance. So, like on a Wednesday or Thursday afternoon at the latest, you should be able to link everything advanced for print editions. For Sunday for Monday editions, all of that stuff's in Friday, sometimes even Thursday. And if designers can get started on that earlier, it makes things a lot easier for them, which then makes things a lot easier for our team members who work Sunday and there. So, all right. Anybody have anything to add quick, or should we wrap
I
this
do
up?
have one thing to add. On Saturdays and Sundays, I'm going to give you a sliver of hope. I heard from the engagement people that we're hopefully getting, they're building right now for the Rink Live website, kind of a feed that automatically takes like the NHL stuff to the Rink Live. And so when we were working on that, we've kind of trying to work on nation world stories will all automatically post to our company websites. So for those of us, Hannah, myself, some other people who have to work on the weekends who post stories to the web, hopefully, I don't have a definite timeline in that we will not have to be posting stories to the web, nation world stories. We're still going to put up our St. Paul stories and sports like that and Sports Wire. But basically on the weekends, we want to post 2 to 3 wire stories on Saturdays and Sundays. Basically whatever the cover of Nation World is, really. But hopefully in the future that'll be done for us. So I'm hoping that can happen. I'll let you know.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.